Right, welcome to our final day. So today's word is championing. Um, we're unlikely to be celebrated in what we do if we're actually not visible and not seen by other people.
Yeah.
And to be seen, we've really got to start identifying ourselves and putting ourselves forward to be noticed. Sometimes the ways that we can do that might surprise you. So in the workbook today, you've looked at how you might ask for help. And actually, asking for help can be a really good way to be noticed, and you never know where it might lead. Like the things that you can get back from your network if you publicly put out that you're in need of something can be amazing and actually offer you a really amazing support network too. Receiving feedback to get better at stuff is also a really great way of getting yourself out there. Mm-hmm. So championing yourself by actually saying, I'd really like some feedback on this thing, is a really great starting point. We also think that championing other people can be an accessible way to develop your voice and actually begin to champion yourself. We spoke about that really early on in the course, actually, about how I like to celebrate other people, and that's helped me find my own voice online.
Yeah.
It can really help you find your voice, and advocating for other people can help you define what you're comfortable with when it comes to putting yourself forward into a public realm.
Yeah.
It can also help you find the voice that you do not like.
Yeah.
Which is just as equally as important.
And it's interesting, you can learn so much from listening to how other people advocate and how other people put themselves out there online, and just pick and choose about the things that you do like and the things that you don't think will work for you.
Definitely. So I'm going to hand over to Georgia today. She's going to talk us through building meaningful connections online and just how you might start to shout out about yourself. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we touched on LinkedIn and my other alternative favourite, the dots, before. They are amazing tools for feeling the fear and putting yourself out there anyway. We did a lot of talking about getting the confidence to just start sharing rather than keeping yourself to yourself and just hoping a miracle happens and somebody notices you or scouts you. Today, we are deep into the theme of championing, which I believe links super strongly to the platforms like LinkedIn. To simplify the equation a little bit, the LinkedIn algorithm cares about one thing: making connections. Obviously, it cares about other things, but for the purposes of this, it cares about one thing, and that's making connections. It cares about connecting people, cares about creating visibility for people that care about connection. And so when we talk about the algorithm, it can feel like this mysterious thing, right? Like no one really knows what's happening. This is true for Instagram as well. I always hear, oh, the Instagram algorithm has changed again. All of my content is doing badly. Well, maybe you just are not using it the way that the creators want you to use it anymore. Now, when LinkedIn comes along, to a certain extent, the image is true that the algorithm is a mysterious thing. And although I'm a big believer in dumping off the algorithm in favor of using an online space in the way that's true to yourself, understanding how it works can really help to increase your visibility and make forming those meaningful connections easier and make it easier to get your voice out there. This will then have a domino effect, exposing you to different ways of thinking, different voices, advice, opportunities. The list goes on. So here are some really basic ways that you can make all those juicy side effects happen. Just trying to understand the algorithm and being your truest, honest self. So, number 1, follow hashtags based on values and goals. You already know what your values are. You already know what your goals are. We did that. That was yesterday's news. So make sure that you're following relevant hashtags. Same goes for LinkedIn groups. Some of them can be pretty dry and stale and not much going on, but when you hit on a good one, it's full of like-minded people that are also chasing similar things and that will be able to give you advice. Number 3, Commenting on other people's content rather than just liking or reacting does you huge favors. It shows not only the content of the person that you're commenting on to all of your network, but also all of their network and the people that have liked that post, and those people's contacts and those people's contacts, they all see your comment. Next, showing up on the content of people that inspire you. It's a really fast way to find like-minded thinkers, because if you're into that, somebody else is going to be into that too. And that's an easy way to connect. Hey, I saw that you commented on this content. We should connect. Sharing content from thought leaders that align with your values does the same thing. Also has the added benefit of weeding people out from your network that don't align with your values. Posting regularly about your own experience also really helps. Consistency over amount is always the way to go. If you can post once a month for a year, fine, great. If you can post once a week for a year, great. As long as you're doing it over an extended period of time, you're all good. Now, on my more difficult weeks, because everyone goes through ups and downs, that might just look like doing a roundup of everything that happened to me that week in one post, because I don't have the energy to come up with anything smart or witty. That's okay too. As long as you're showing up in the space, they'll see you. And then also tagging people. It can feel a bit awkward to start with when you tag people in your posts, especially if they're not people that you've necessarily had a conversation with. But when you tag people that have inspired you in your posts, or people that you've been involved with in projects that you're talking about, they have the opportunity to see you as an individual, and they have the opportunity to share that with their whole network. So definitely start doing that. So those are like my quick fire ways to play the algorithm in your favor to make meaningful connection. Again, it's okay if your goals or your values shift over time, because you never know how the connection you make today is going to help you tomorrow. Just make sure that you always feel like you're being yourself, you're being true to yourself. Then there's no reason to feel embarrassed or unsure about what you are putting out into the world. You're enough. You are worth the spotlight, and your voice needs to be heard. Now, as this is the last moment that we will be sharing together, just the two of us here, I want to end today's concept section by reiterating what I consider to be the most important themes over the last few days, and yet probably the hardest to master. Be confident in yourself. You've put in all this work now to figure out what you want, who you are, building the confidence to then put that all out into the world without dimming your light. Allow others to help you, to inspire you. Never let their journeys create doubt in your own journey. You're your own person. You're fabulous. You have your own story to tell with your own experiences. No one has the same path as you. So don't let anything get in the way of giving the gift of you to the world. You deserve this.
Hello, my name is Kime, and I am the founder of the learning platform for creators, Creative Champs. And in this video, we're going to be looking at how you can build connections in a way that feels comfortable to you and safe. Because some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, and some of us are a little bit in the middle. So in this clip, we're going to be covering as much ground as possible to make sure that you're able to form those connections and build that community to help you get going on your journey and continue on your journey. Building connections, as we know, is a crucial part of any process as it pertains to work and careers. But the problem is, some of us might feel a little bit more awkward about such things, or some of us might be on the more introverted side where our energy is drained the more strangers we tend to interact with. So in this clip, I'm going to try my best to explore a variety of different methods that will hopefully suit you depending on what your interaction style is and where your discomfort sort of lies. So we're going to be taking a look at that. Now, the first thing I'm going to cover, the first area, is networking in person, because this is it can be really awkward if you are a socially awkward turtle and you identify as one, like I do. This can be quite daunting and quite scary. The first thing I like to do is, first of all, remove the word networking. So I remove the word networking and I replace it with just meeting people, having conversation. Because I don't know what it is, but for me personally, and this might help you too, the word networking, it just puts an extra layer of pressure onto the situation, because it symbolizes that there's an expectation there. There's an expectation to form a certain amount of connections or get connected with specific people who exist in specific spaces. And although there's nothing wrong with that, when it's something that you're uncomfortable doing, this can make it just that little bit more challenging and that little bit more off-putting. But if you treat it as conversation, you're going to have conversations and you're going to meet new people, I find this can make things just that little bit less pressurized and make it that little bit easier to just show up and speak as your organic, authentic self. If you attend a show or an exhibit or a conference of some kind and you find that, okay, there could be someone on the panel that piques your interest. Okay, I'd like to learn more about this person. Find them on LinkedIn. If they offer any, well, they often do tend to offer alternative means of contact at these sort of events and things. You know, they've got the QR codes and they'll offer their social media handles. Just reach out to them online. When you're in the comfort of your own home, if approaching them in person is a little bit too daunting, when you're in the comfort of your own home, you're removing the physical side of things and you can just, you know, focus on the words that you're using and the conversation that you're striking up. Just reach out to them on social media. Say, oh, saw you at XYZ event, really interested in what you do, would love to stay in touch. Something like that. Doesn't have to be OTT. And whoever that person is that you did reach out to, they're more likely to remember you. I mean, I facilitated workshops and I've had a number of people, students, learners, come to me afterwards, send me a message on LinkedIn, like, oh, you know, and they'll strike up a conversation. And I'm still interacting with many of those people to this day. It's just a really nice way to just break the ice, pay them a compliment or speak about the things that you genuinely enjoyed about what they had to say and what they actually do. Another thing you could do is if you do attend an exhibit, for example, and you notice that they have left their business cards or their QR codes or whatever it is that the people are using these days, just take it. Take it. If you're not in the mood to interact in that specific moment in time, take it and save it for later use so you can connect with them online instead. And aside from sending messages directly to people, what you can do on places like LinkedIn, you can join groups that are of interest to you. They don't necessarily have to be verbatim related to the industry that you're involved in, but something that piques your interest, something that you're genuinely interested in, and something that you know you can contribute or add value to in terms of the discussions they might be having. So just join a group, take some time to observe the kind of conversations they're having, and if you can see an opportunity where you're like, oh, you know what, I've got a solution to that issue, or someone's just posted a question, I know the answer to that, or I've got an answer for that, then that is also another way that you can then form connections, because you're sharing value, and then other people might see the value you're adding and then get inclined or be inclined to get in touch with you as well. Collaborating with others, it could be with friends, it could be with people who are involved in your industry to work on a community project or a social enterprise project or something that will add value to the wider community. I find that these types of projects are extremely beneficial in terms of forming those connections, and you're also able to tap into each other's audiences, which is also another amazing way to build new connections and speak to new people that you might not have had as much access to before. And the final point that I do want to make on this is that I feel above all, it's important to focus on building genuine connections and genuine friendship and bonds with people. These kind of connections are invaluable, they are golden, and I honestly can't tell you the amount of opportunities that have been born for me personally as a result of these friendships. And they were never intentional, but I find that those are the best connections to make, because it's those connections that will help you to build trust. And trust is something that you'll need to instill, or that you'll need to garner, that you need to earn from the community in order to build those connections. It needs to be based on genuine connection, where you all serve to inspire and encourage one another to just live your best lives and do your best things with your best self. And that's what it's all about, building those genuine connections.
So my name's Chris Jones, and I'm a people development specialist here at the university. Basically that means that I train the people who work behind the scenes. So my take on sort of keeping things fresh is it keeps people interested. So my LinkedIn profile, I have about 19,500 connections, and not all of those are people that I interact with on a regular basis. But when I recently faced redundancy, I opened up my profile to opportunities, shall we say, and the amount of interest was phenomenal because I kept it up to date. I dusted it off, and what I do now is keep it as almost like a living thing. So when I do a LinkedIn learning course, I tell people about it so that they see it as another skill, and the amount of people that then endorse you for skills is unbelievable. I always think that writing the bio, whether it's online or on your CV, it's very much a dark art, because there is no right or wrong, and it comes down to you as the individual. But when I read them, and I've been a recruiting manager as well, what I like to see is something that shows me why you're the right person for the job, so your skills, your strengths, your values, but also something that tells me about you as an individual. So again, going back to your values are intrinsic to you, but they can be intrinsic to the place that you work or your skills that you've got. So it has to be a balancing act between the two, because I want to know that there's an individual behind that CV or that profile. There is a living, breathing human being there, and there has to be something there that intrigues me, that I want to meet them. Especially as a hiring manager, you want to get them into the room for an interview. Why them above anybody else? And ultimately it comes down to you being that honest, authentic person that I believe in and I want to meet. So I think it can be daunting. It's that thing of facing a white sheet of paper, and as an illustrator there's nothing worse, because you've got to put a mark down at some point, and to do that in this context is actually almost like bearing your soul a little bit. My first kind of way of dealing with it, I suppose, is bullet points. But to do that, you kind of need to know yourself a little bit better. So I know that you've done some work potentially around values. So that's a great place to start. But also compare them against other people's. So you're not comparing the content, but you're comparing the way that it's been done. It's the design, if you like. And there is nothing wrong with pinching somebody else's design in this context. I'm not suggesting plagiarism wholly, but it helps you find your voice, I suppose, and the way to do it. But the way to look at your content for me is around the bullet point piece, to sit and look at those bullet points and share them with people and get their feedback, to make sure that you're putting across you as an individual, and being honest and open about it all. I think my advice for your CV profile is, well, for your CV in general to start with, is the way that I've always done it is have a master copy. So I've got 41 years worth of career history. Nobody wants to read that, even I don't want to read it. But they might want to know about the last 10 or 15 years. So what I've got is a Word document that's got everything I've ever done on it. And I keep that live, and that's fresh, that's up to date. But then I will doctor that depending on the job, and I will doctor the statement depending on the job. But the statement that's on my master copy might actually read like War and Peace, because there may be stuff in there that I don't want to forget and I don't want to miss, and might be pertinent to the next role that I go for. But again, it goes back to that fine line between skills and strengths and values, and you as an individual. Because however you word it, we still need to know that there's a person behind all of that. So yes, make it relevant to the role that you're going for, but show them that you're a person, and never ever put a photograph on it.
Ready to hear more about what it means to show up online in a way that screams, I'm here to make connections. I'm not here to use you and run away? Yeah, me too. Let's get back into it with Kime.
Hello, my name's Kime and I am the founder of the learning platform for creators, Creative Champs. In this clip, I'm going to be speaking to you all about self-advocacy and finding the words and the ways that you can exercise this, because this can be a little bit of a tricky ground to tread on. So we're going to get into it. All right, let's go. Advocating for yourself, this has always been quite a sticky issue because some people feel like self-advocacy a lot of the time looks like going to war, going to battle, arguing, being confrontational, or having to have those awkward conflicts. Sometimes you might be required to step out of your comfort zone in terms of interaction to enforce particular things, especially if you're dealing with difficult people or you're in a difficult position. But self-advocacy doesn't always have to look like that. It can look like enforcing boundaries in terms of how you wish to be communicated with. You might express that you would prefer to receive notice before you receive a phone call. Advocating for yourself can also look like asking questions. If you're about to sign an agreement, but you're not really sure if the agreement has your best interest at heart, it's about doubling down and asking questions about certain clauses. Getting clarification on things because you're protecting yourself. Yeah. To advocate for yourself is to protect yourself and to have your own back. And it's necessary, especially in a world where, let's face it, exploitation is rife. There are a bunch of factors at play that can be more damaging than anything else. And we need to make sure that our energy is protected, that our mental health is protected, and that our well-being is protected, because above all else, that is what's important. Because if you don't have that, nothing else can really culminate. One of the most powerful tools for self-advocacy is knowledge. Yeah, knowledge. If you're an employee, knowledge would look like getting clued up on your rights as an employee. Yeah. And those the policies that they have in place. Learn those inside out. Learn the employee handbook inside out, so that if anything does hit the fan, you are equipped and you have the evidence there to back you up, and you know what you're talking about, and you know what your rights are, and you know what you don't have to stand for. Joining a union, I cannot stress the importance of that enough. It's really handy to have a union in your corner, whether you're an employee, whether you're self-employed, but just having that support and a resource to go to. If you're unsure about what your rights might be in particular situations, or how you can navigate particular things, like if you're called in for a meeting or a disciplinary at work, you can have someone there to represent you to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. It's self-advocacy. It can be manifested in so many different ways. Another way you can advocate for yourself, especially if you're working on projects or you're working with other people, is to make sure that agreements are signed. Make sure that agreements are fair. Yeah. Making sure that your needs are being met just as much as the client's needs are being met or the customer's needs are being met. Because in all of this, as I say, your well-being is important, and you need to make sure that you are also satisfied and that you're not sacrificing or compromising too much of yourself in order to make that happen. Because you don't want to lose yourself in the process. You know what I mean? On your quest for freedom or creative freedom, or whatever it is that you're in search of, you don't want to lose yourself along the way, and you need to make sure that you back yourself up and you make sure that you have all the tools you need to efficiently and effectively protect yourself, understanding what your rights are, and just making sure that you're navigating in an informed way. You're understanding that you're a human being and you deserve to bear the fruits of your labor and not be exploited along the way. And ultimately, self-advocacy is a journey, because a lot of it is dependent on how you react to things or how you navigate, and sometimes your confidence level as well, because if you have lower levels of confidence, it can be more difficult to advocate for yourself because you're already beating yourself up. And so the way you speak to yourself and the way you interact with yourself is also a form of self-advocacy, because it affects how you go about achieving that. So you need to make sure that you're speaking to yourself in a kind way, and you're giving yourself grace. You're resting. You're giving yourself time to learn. You're giving yourself the chance and the space to make mistakes, and you're not beating yourself up over those mistakes.
Okay, thank you, Kia, for sharing yet more goodness that we can start integrating into our lives right away. Some really actionable things there. It really feels like the possibilities are limitless when it comes to creating your own future, especially after everything that we've covered this week. And you know what? It feels so comforting to know that it's okay to throw your plan in the bin, and that your values can shift and things can change. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what life is going to throw at you, so might as well just roll with it.
Yeah, you've got to have the fluidity.
Yeah, and as long as you have all the tools that we've provided through the workbook and through the content that you've been viewing with us this week, you'll be fine. You have the toolkit now to be able to roll with the punches.
So I tried really hard to think of my biggest failure, and I feel like I fail loads. I fail all the time. So I really struggled to find what the biggest failure is. So I think I couldn't describe a biggest failure for you, because I think day to day I do things well and I do things badly. I think probably the thing that comes up time and time again that I do that fails me is that I don't put myself first, is that I worry more about what other people are feeling than what I feel. So it can cause me to burn out sometimes. And I think that if I were able to manage that better, that would enable me to be more effective, basically, and not make as many mistakes, and just be generally a happier person. So I've been much more able to recognise that in myself, and I put in boundaries to kind of stop myself falling down that rabbit hole. Because if you consistently, I suppose, if you consistently remove your foundations that keep you steady and keep you able to achieve things, and that could be like not having enough sleep, or not eating enough, or not giving yourself enough time to socialize, or do things for yourself, go for a walk, all of these kinds of things, then you won't be able to do the things you want to do, because the foundations will be wobbly or falling down, and then you might, that's when you need time to recover. So what I've learned from it, I mean, it doesn't stop me from failing, it doesn't stop me from forgetting about the fact that I get too stressed or I worry too much about other people's feelings. It doesn't stop me, but I recognise earlier when I'm doing it, and then I can kind of backtrack and go, okay, what do I need to do to stop myself going down that rabbit hole? And I think that what I've learned from it really is that if you don't check yourself earlier on, then the consequences are much larger than if you put those boundaries in place. So things like burnout and meltdown and, having to take time off really because you're too exhausted. I think that's a failure we consistently make throughout, our workplaces and lots of things like that. We do burn ourselves out. So I think that would be something that I've learned. And I think failure itself, like, it's not a bad thing. Like, failure is a natural part of life, and failure looks different for different people. So that's why I was like, I'm not really sure what my failure is, because I failed lots of times, but I don't see them as failures. I see them as kind of like, oh, well, that didn't go so well. What is it that I could do differently? Or, what were the reasonings behind that? Because it's not always just you being not very good at something. There's usually other factors in place there. So yeah, it's about self-compassion, I think, for sure.
So as we draw how to be effectively you to a close, I think the question I would want to ask you would be this. knowing what you know now, how are you going to begin?
I agree. Keep balancing planning and action. So keep testing the tools that you've explored throughout the course and revisit the processes at any stage. It's okay to be going forward and then step backwards.
Mm-hmm.
What we want to share with you is that it's not a linear process.
Definitely not.
None of this. It's not so simple that you go through a goal setting exercise and then you automatically achieve that goal because you've set it.
Yeah, there are so many hurdles that like you can plan for, and then the hurdles that you can't plan for. So you just have to be able to keep on your toes and react where you need to.
Yeah. And remember, when you recognise how failure was a learning opportunity, that was really important. Remember how you broke down a massive goal into a really tangible trunk so that you knew how to get started on that. Revisit this when you get stuck and you need to begin again. Learning is ongoing, and reflecting on your learning really helps strengthening your development.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to reach out to the people that you've met during your time in this course, or even the professionals that have supported your learning with the content throughout the week, and us. Feel free to revisit any of the sections in your workbook. And most importantly, keep playing and keep building, however exhausting it might seem, because you're worth it.
You are you.
Yeah.
And you're the only person effective at being you.
Yeah.
So, for sure, use the people that you've met in this course to begin to build your network online. Contact them, follow them, ask them some questions, shout out when you need some help, and share your personal bio and celebrate yourself outwards into that public sphere. Get out there and be accountable to you. Mm-hmm. We have been so excited to work with you throughout this process, and we hope that you feel effective at being exactly who you are and exactly who you are right now. So even if you have some actions to start, goals to set, or development to undertake, remember that that's all part of the process. And the values and skills that you have right now are worth telling the world about. And if you want to learn something new or get some experience now, ask your network, ask for help. You won't believe what you might get back or the opportunities that this might open up for you. But we want to say good luck.
Yeah.
Get in touch, link in with us, be brave, and most importantly, be you.
Yes.